from antlers and beavers to the high-tech world that we live in today, and the important role that both Taiwan and the United States play in it. In fact, the computer age that we live in is unimaginable without Taiwan and the U.S. Taiwan is now among the 20 largest economies in the world. Our two-way trade exceeds $63 billion a year. Taiwan is the 11th largest trading partner of the United States, and the United States is one of the top 3 trading partners of Taiwan. As AIT Chairman Ray Burkhart has observed, Taiwanese eat, drink, smoke, and wear more U.S. products per capita than anybody in the world but Canada. As a lawyer in private law practice, my international business law practice has seen the change from the days when I went to Taiwan as a young lawyer and represented primarily big American companies that were established there, were making products, were also transferring technology and training young Taiwanese engineers. To today, with White & Case, a global law firm with more than 2,000 lawyers around the world, where our Taiwan-related clients are primarily Taiwan companies doing business here and all around the world. As great as the relationship is between Taiwan and the United States, though we all have to recognize that it is far from a simple bilateral relationship. There's always a third party in the picture. As the New York Times foreign policy writer Thomas Friedman recounted a couple of years ago, the conversation that he had with Taichung's Mayor Jason Hu, he referred to China as the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And Mayor Hu replied, "It's worse than that. The gorilla thinks he's my brother." In fact, Taiwan's relations with China have really never been better than they are right now. Taiwan companies have invested billions of dollars in China. China is Taiwan's #1 trading partner today. There are approximately 1 million Taiwanese living and working in China today, almost 5% of Taiwan's total population. Each week, there are more than 600 flights between Taiwan and China. A wide variety of agreements have been reached in recent years, including ECFA, the Economic Cooperation Framework Agreement between Taiwan and the mainland. And yet, tensions remain high between Taiwan and China. Obviously, because of the PRC's claim that Taiwan is merely a province of China. There's no history to support that. Taiwan has never been a province of the PRC. But the PRC's enormous military buildup, including more than 2,000 missiles aimed at Taiwan, and its refusal to renounce the use of force against Taiwan, keep tensions high and make it difficult for the United States to maintain balance, but also make it imperative that the United States not be entirely passive and let matters take their own course. The U.S. position on Taiwan and China legally is based on the Taiwan Relations Act, as well as 3 communiques between the U.S. and China entered into in 1972, 79, and 1982, and various assurances or statements of policy by various American presidents. But they really come down to three essential principles that guide American policy. One is that any resolution of the tensions and the issues between Taiwan and China must be peaceful. Second, although there is a commitment, a security commitment by the United States to Taiwan, set forth in the Taiwan Relation Act, the United States has crafted a so-called strategic ambiguity, which in effect tells Taiwan that the American security commitment doesn't extend to a so-called provocation, such as a declaration of independence, but also tells China that short of that, the United States stands by Taiwan's side. And finally, and very importantly, that whatever resolution there is, and whenever it may come, between Taiwan and China, must be based on the democratically expressed will of the people of Taiwan. There are, however, some people in our country who don't, to use the slang term, get it when it comes to the importance of Taiwan to the United States. And some of those people have been either very prominent academically or in very important positions in the government from time to time, and their views have influenced American policy. Foremost among that group, I would say, is former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. Kissinger published a book last year, which perhaps many of you have read, about China policy. It was called On China. In that book, Kissinger refers more than 200 times to Taiwan. And in virtually every instance, he refers to Taiwan as a problem in the U.S. relationship with China. Never does he really reflect that he understands the importance and value of the relationship between Taiwan and the U.S. A famous Harvard professor named Arthur Schlesinger, who was prominent back in the Kennedy administration and an influential intellectual in the United States, wrote an article in 1986 which he called Twilight for Taiwan. In other words, in his opinion, Taiwan was at the end of its days. Taiwan had a good ride up to that point in 1986, but things were coming to a close. Well, imagine, 1986. In 1986, Taiwan was just a few months away from the flowering of its democracy, the establishment of the Democratic Progressive Party, the election held in 1988 when Lee Teng-hui was elected president. In 1986, great Taiwan companies like TSMC and Quanta Computer hadn't even been started yet. And yet we see often the recurrence of this theme of those people who didn't get it. The paramount example of people in power in the United States who didn't get it was President Jimmy Carter and his State Department, who broke diplomatic relations with Taiwan in 1979 in the process of establishing relations with the PRC. The United States had to deal with the reality of China at some point, but its treatment of its friend and ally in Taiwan was shabby and unnecessary. Carter's announcement was sprung on the world and on those of us who were in Taiwan with no preparation at all. It was the first time in American history, and remains the only time in American history, that we've broken relations with a friendly country. For those of us in Taiwan, that break created an immediate crisis. The embassy was instantly shut down. The U.S. military, what remained of it, and the Taiwan presence was withdrawn. The infrastructure that had been created by the embassy and the military was completely jeopardized. The Taipei American School, among them. And so there was a vacuum suddenly for the American community. The embassy was gone, the ambassador was gone, the military was being pulled out, the radio station was being shut down. And we, the American business community, were left in the lurch, along with, of course, the entire country of Taiwan. As far as Americans in Taiwan were concerned, there was a vacuum of leadership. Somebody had to step into it and provide the leadership. As it turned out, I had just been elected chairman of the American Chamber of Commerce, which was an organization that had done a good job as a Chamber of Commerce, but had never been accustomed to providing leadership in the community when there was an embassy, and there was the military, and there were all of the other institutions that were present. But someone had to take the responsibility, and so I stepped into it. We launched 4 domestic projects. One was the Taipei American School to provide for its continuity. The second was the American Club. The third was a youth activities program for American kids in Taiwan.